Grand Rising, everyone. Hope everyone's doing great this rising.
Grand Rising, Grand Rising.
Peace, peace, everybody. Peace. Mic check.
Everybody says Grand Rising, he goes peace. Okay, here we go. It's gonna be one of them.
It's the Grand Rising show. I mean, it's kind of obvious.
It's gonna be one of them risings already. I see.
Yeah, man. Peace works, y'all.
Already, he started.
Oh, so at the top of the show, we're starting. But Grand Rising, everybody.
Just like he's late with his piece. It's late with the Grand Rising. We gotta have a conversation about that, but we'll do that off air.
Like spades, I like to go last.
Really? Mm-mm-mm. We're gonna let some more of y'all get in the building. Put them ones in the air. Put those ones in the chat if the audio's coming through clearly. You can hear everybody.
Oh, heard the hip hop former teammates
I
come
know,
out.
look. You heard him? Look, I was about to say, wait a minute. Who tour DJ is you?
You know, I got feeling I got voluntold to do this part. Grand Rising Marlon P. Grand Rising I'm Flying Squirrel. Grand Rising Brittany.
Peace to the chat. Peace, everybody.
They say got teammates live on the 1 and 2 this rising.
Yeah, literally. The ones and the twos.
Oh, man. Brains is woke this morning.
Yeah.
Rising.
Man.
Hit you with the entendres.
Yeah.
Don't play.
Yeah, don't do that because I can't spell that. Nor can I pronounce it. Pronouncing all of these Chiefs names and these Indian names.
We're still working on it. That's what it is. We're working on that word.
Look, man. Look. I'm not trying to step on no Chiefs, no Indians.
Oh yeah. Disclaimer.
Listen, I take the first and last name and call you TT.
Yeah.
Start with a T, last name a T. Oh, that's Chief TT. I ain't finna mess his name up.
Chief TT, exactly. Yeah, we don't. That's a disclaimer for A2. We are not out here trying to mess up names on purpose. You feel any type of way about your ancestors' name being chopped up?
Please correct us.
Assembly.
Please correct us.
With the phonetic spelling.
Yeah. Because
my Indian pronunciation is not up to par. I'll be the first to admit that.
We're gonna work on it though. I just don't want to go onto a reservation and get pimp slapped by a council because I'm disrespecting somebody's name.
My name is I'm sorry. Syllables. I'm sorry.
Well, you know better.
I'm working on it.
Start getting emails with the phonetic pronunciation of the Dago tribes and the Chiefs names. That would definitely help, by the way. So just a little hint. If
anybody's listening,
just make sure you space mine out a little bit more for the pronunciations to be right, so I don't jumble it up.
Each line, each syllable is a line. Please. I'd appreciate that.
Please do. That'll help so much.
So how's everybody day go yesterday? Mine was mostly work. What about you, No Sellout?
I caught a nice little 3-hour nap.
That's not a nap.
Hey, when you sleep for 4 hours.
That's sleep. I mean, that's like you ready to go for another 24, right? No?
All I do is nap. I don't even get over 8 hours.
12? No.
Just 12.
I mean, it's 24 hours in a day, they tell us, right? The average person, let them tell it, sleeps 8. I don't know nobody sleeps 8 hours, but then that leaves you with
16.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna work another 8 to 10 of that day.
So Bounce, how is it that you always sound like a Decepticon when we need you to talk?
I think they just don't like me.
Okay, so now I can hear you. So wherever you at, stay right there. No, just playing. So basically, it sounds like myself and No Sellout had just uneventful normal days, but apparently your day or your evening was a little bit different. Do you care to share with us?
Yeah. I can say for the first time in my life yesterday, I experienced what it is to have to be in an altercation with your local police department, if I may say.
Altercation? What do you mean?
Well, basically, where my neighborhood, it's pretty decent and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then you have like, what's the best word? I want to word it right. A disturbance, a household disturbance in the neighborhood, to where as a community we try to come together, and address the situation. Um, but it gets out of hand when you have police departments that don't use common sense and don't listen to homeowners and businessmen. So they took a situation that could have been solved by a basic conversation and turned it into a physical altercation.
Oh, okay.
Dealing with Aboriginal teenagers, 14-year-old sister on the 18-year-old sister. Police kind of roughed them up and manhandled them. But as a community, we stood together and spoke out on it. Got a chance to contact the commissioner and a couple of other high officials in Tifton. So A2 have a meeting coming up with the officials of Tifton to see what we can do to get better communications between American Indian communities and these police departments that's supposed to be serving and protecting our interests mainly. So that'd be something that we'll keep the community updated on, and A2 will let everybody be informed on it. But A2 does have a sit-down meeting with the commissioners of Tifton coming up pretty soon.
But that was something that you was going to be scheduled anyway, meet with the commissioner, right?
Yeah, it just speeded up the process. Because before I had to go through like the actual proper chains and stuff, but because of the altercation and family relations and stuff, I have direct contacts, personal numbers now. So to get in contact with them, I don't have to call City Hall downtown, set an appointment. I can call directly to her now.
That's what's up. So what are you hoping to accomplish once you are in a position to speak with the commissioner and things of that nature?
Well, basically, what I did so far is got the homeowners and stuff together to get their issues in front of the commissioner to see what we can do to fix it. Especially, because my concern is this: when is it that the hard-working American Indian who owns a business, who's buying this house, voice doesn't matter? And that's our concern here, is that our voices need to matter. And it's actually trying to get the dialogue between these people that's supposed to represent us in our cities, these elected officials, and let them know if they can't do the job, we are aware of our power and we will remove them and start putting our own people in places to get the job done. That's basically the main thing in my neighborhood, what we're trying to change.
Okay. So it's advisable to start at the top, at least talk to the commissioner, try to get some form of communications with individuals that are actually in charge and the decision makers, because it doesn't do you any good to try to talk to the police, because the police, they're not the decision makers. They're the ones that carry out and uphold the law, using quotation marks. So if you talk to the individuals that make the decisions and are in a position to make change, that's where you ensure that the change will be made.
Facts.
Okay. Grand Rising, Arthur Gray. Hope everything's going well with you.
Peace. Because the people that they took, they released, no charges or nothing, just let them go. But the problem is, you take time out of people's life over a situation that didn't have to go that way.
Right.
All the officers had to realize is, okay, you got a whole community telling you what the issue and what the situation is. When does common sense go out the door?
Right.
I always believed if the majority is speaking and the minority is saying one thing, it's obvious on where you should be listening to. But, we're going to work to make sure that we can get better communications, better representation between these departments and the people that they're supposed to be protecting.
Yeah. Grand Rising Pamela Hall, we was just giving the A2 chat an update on what's been going on in our communities, and Bones was just telling us about an altercation that happened in his neighborhood, and how they're going to address it. But at the end of the day, what it boils down to is, you know, as we know, through our communities, regardless of what we call ourselves, they're going to look at us, meaning the police or the authorities are going to look at us a different way. So instead of addressing the individuals that do not have the authority to make the changes or change the policy, it is in our best interest to talk to the policymakers and the individuals that have position to control or corral the enforcers. 'Cause speaking to the enforcers is useless, as we've experienced with our dealings with these enforcers, because their job is to enforce, or what they call uphold the law. So having a conversation with them, it's just about like trying to have a conversation with a leaf in order to move a tree. It don't work. You got to get to the root of the matter. Getting to the root of the matter with dealing with officers out of line is talk to the commissioner, talk to local politicians. That's if you're not scared. So, um, so that's where we at, and that's why you see the community update banner. And so from time to time, you'll start seeing things of that nature. And just to try to let everybody know what's going on, and also any information that we can provide that's going to help your community, so you know exactly what to do and where to start. Um, you know, I would start looking. I would start talking. Start trying to reach out to your local commissioners and things of that nature. Get involved in your community. Let them know that there are Indians in your area, even if you're the only Indian that you know of right now. Um, Let them know that there's people in your community that are starting to do their genealogy. And you never know, depending on who they are, they may be willing to assist or offer um, maybe a building or something like that. You never know. If you don't talk to people, you don't communicate properly, you will never know what you're capable of doing. Many
And
of
before we move on, I want to take the time out to give a shout out to the business owners on my street that stood out and did the right thing. First, Carter's Little Sheep. I would like to respect them for standing up and helping the community, and also Planet Net Marketing. Two business owners that didn't have to put their neck out there, but they did for the community. So much respect and much love for them even doing that. Again, that's Carter's Little Sheep Daycare. I would like to give respect for, and Planet Marketing. Because like I said, they didn't have to, and they came out of their way to stand up for our community. So we respect that.
So you mean to tell me they didn't just get their phones out and just record it and do what you always talk about, show the worst behavior in our people?
No, actually stood up together to the point to where if one of us gonna go down, we all gonna go down.
Hold on, say that again, because I don't think people understand that. Say that one more time.
Well, in my neighborhood, we stand together. If one of us go down, we all go down. A person, if I can't watch nobody touch your child, because we treat each other children like our own. You know, we're trying to show people, starting in our city, that you can make a difference one street at a time.
Grand Rising, Carrie. Got Carrie Bay in the building. What's going on,
Grand.
guys? Okay.
Please, Gary.
So just so people understand what you mean by that, because you know me, I don't want anybody to create the narrative. And for the record, creating a narrative for anybody's YouTube channel, or a false narrative for anybody's YouTube channel, is not cool. Just so you can make people feel a certain way about them. But just so people understand that when you say stand up, you're not talking about guns blazing, fist swinging, and things of that nature. So when you say stand up, what actually did you guys do? Because this is where the real work gets done. So what was the activity that took place that the community saw that they can actually either emulate or the youth could learn from?
Well, there was one situation to where when the situation started getting a little out of hand, one of the gentlemen thought he was going to be able to put his hands on his mother, not in front of us. As men, we all went out there to the road and let them know that's not going to be played that way. When the officers had one of the young ladies on the ground, she had to take her medicine. It was me and a couple of other homeboys from my street that walked up to the young sister on the ground, rolled her over, sat her up, and my wife came over and gave her medicine, regardless on what the officers were saying. Because we tried to let them know, like, listen, this is what you're here for. The sister needs help. And if you won't help her, we're going to help her. And the threat of locking us up for helping one of our own don't scare us.
Okay.
You know, it's just knowing the right thing and being and willing to stand for right. You know, and that sometimes knowing that standing for right might cost you a little bit, but it doesn't matter when you know it's right. You know, and that's just something that we teach our children here, and we try to, you know, the men and women on my street, we try to display the best of that every day, every chance we get.
So what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, you're
Mm-hmm.
actually living what you're talking about. You don't just talk about it and your community doesn't know. So your community knows you're an Indian. The
Mm-hmm.
community knows that you help with genealogy. The
Yes.
community sees you're leading, and now they're starting to take action to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people in your community actually listen to the show, right?
Yeah, yeah, the majority of them, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to put that out there. And knowing you and knowing your community, I already know somebody did whip out a camera, right?
Oh yeah, I got a whole lot of footage dropped off to me. I got people combing through it, editing it up for a release. Because it's not a story that we're gonna let go. That we're gonna use this situation to lay the blueprint for change. So if we do it here, then we can go to all these other streets and communities and do the same thing.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. That's what's up. So, if anybody has any questions or want to comment on it before we transition back to the Indian Wars, I'll give you about another that 30 to 90 seconds, and then we're gonna transition back to what we came here for. Um, but again, from time to time, you'll hear a community update, hear what's going on in different communities, and also too, if there's things going on in your community where you or someone in your community is making a difference in the Indian community, please let us know. The phone number will pop back up after we transition back to the screen. So, anything you want to add, No Sellout?
No, I like the fact that like when he said when the female, she needed her medicine, then regardless of what the police were saying, she's gonna get her medicine because when situations like that happen, they show up and they're all teammates, working as a team. So if one of them mad, they all mad. If one of them excited, they all excited. If one of them doing this, they all doing this. So to say, hey, no, y'all here, you're public servants. You're supposed to be here to help. So regardless of whether there is a crime or anything going on, you're here to help everybody that's out here that needs help. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that probably needs to happen more. I know more people probably be arrested for that in certain areas because they don't really back down. The officer folk type, they don't back down. So I'm just that's different. That's much different than what we normally see. We just the situation that's going all over the place right now with the 44-year-old female that was shot by a police officer.
Right.
That was a mental health issue, and yeah, she was by herself. There wasn't a community out there to help her or anything like that. But
kind of funny that you said mental health because that's what started the situation. That a mother's son, has mental health issues, and not trying to put the people out there, so I won't mention names, but a household of women take this dude in knowing that he has mental issues, not giving him his medicine, taking his money and stuff. So the mother showed up to get her son back. And as a neighborhood, we supported her. Right is right, wrong is wrong, And that's the thing that hurted me the most is this mother is over here crying to this officer to get her son back, who's mentally ill, who hasn't had his medicine for 2 weeks. And they turn around and they take the mother and her family to jail. That's who went to jail, not the people that had the woman's son locked up in their house, not the people that was taking money from their account, the mother who came to get her son back. Her children get thrown on the ground and took into jail. And we was not finna sit there and watch that play out. I'm sorry, I can't.
Hold on, back up, bro. So, what started this was not that the police came in and picked on your neighborhood. Somebody called. So check how this works. Check how this works because this is how narratives get spent. This is how people are under certain impressions. The police wasn't combing the neighborhood looking to go into a neighborhood to cause a problem. somebody in the neighborhood was causing the problem. Does that not sound familiar?
Yep.
Somebody in the neighborhood was
People who
doing wrong.
call the police, get arrested.
And this is the thing. Yeah, she called the police to get her son back. And when the police get here, the people hollering, oh, there's weapons and this and that, but there's no weapons out there. The police just go to grabbing, slamming people. I'm like, hold on. These people don't got no weapons. This mother here for her son.
So hold on. Obviously, the people that were saying that there were weapons, they were Europeans, right? They were the colonizers, right?
No.
What
Two Aboriginal women that couldn't understand.
Hold it now.
Why this mother wanted her son, who's mentally ill, who they're taking advantage of.
So let's see, because y'all know we all about accountability here. We all about calling stuff out and calling for what it is. So had they been on code and doing what they were supposed to do, none of this would have happened. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You know, and true indeed, they released everybody. You know, but the problem is this: you took a family, a mother and her children, to jail because a mother was defending her children. But now if her son go out there and do something wrong and hurt somebody, these same police want this mother to be responsible. Isn't that backwards?
Mm-hmm. That's right. I am Flying Squirrel. Tribal, holding everybody in the tribe accountable, and they didn't let it go. And the narrative could have easily been spun that the police came into the neighborhood causing trouble, and the neighborhood wasn't going to stand for it. When in actuality, the police were called. And when they came, they basically arrested the person that was trying to get her son. Her and her son. But because somebody in the community wasn't doing what they were supposed to do, and they weren't living up to code and respecting the rights of somebody and taking advantage of them, you can't make this stuff up. Taking advantage of somebody in the community, taking their money, not doing the right thing, and then when the money runs out, then they mistreat them.
Yeah, and it's sad because the dude, 17 going on 18, the woman like 35, 36, 37 years old, taking advantage of a child. Even though by 18 they say you're grown, but we know that he has mental issues and stuff, so technically he's still a child. Wrong is wrong.
Man, I know when I was 18, I was considered grown. I was in the military, and I had the authorization to shoot and kill as a soldier. That don't mean I was an adult. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
You know, just wanted to send the notice to our neighborhood that if you're on our street, we are tribal on our street. There's no ifs and buts about that. My neighbor does not have to be home for his home to be protected. My neighbors don't have to be home for their children to be looked after. And the same with me. Because as long as there's adults in our neighborhood in their home, our children and our house are protected. We believe in that, and we're going to do our best to push that on. Like I said, one street at a time. If we changed our street in less than a couple of months, we're trying to change another street in less than a couple of months.
So everybody on code, one street at a time.
Yeah.
So basically, not only are you protecting your community from outsiders, you're protecting your community from the insiders that have no good intentions for the community as well.
No morals, yeah.
Facts. And they asked me to speak yesterday, and when I said that, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Let's not forget that.
So, okay. So again,
yeah, you didn't toss some people with that one. Then you said that somebody didn't know that.
Well,
somebody did not know that needed to hear that.
Well, I think people know it, but because people want to unite and be on the same accord, and people are under the misguided notion, one of utopia. Because I feel like our community is under and has always been under the impression before the colonizer got here, we were all together and we were all communal and we were all on the same accord. That's not true.
You know what? There's a lot of people in this community that believe that.
And at the end of the day, if they actually do some research and actually read instead of just listening to what people say and taking people's word for it because of their titles, they would
We're living in the
realize
dream world.
that there were tribes who have natural enemies, and if they actually talk to those tribes, they will find out that the Cherokee and the Choctaw didn't get along, and the Cherokee and Choctaw didn't get along way before the colonizers got here. So why didn't they get along? Well, in order to find that out, what you gotta do, you gotta talk to the chiefs, you gotta talk to the council, you gotta talk to the people that's there. So at the end of the day, the police were called into Bones' neighborhood not because the colonizer wanted the police there. One of our own in the community was doing something they had no business doing, and people decided to stand up to them, and now it's going to get corrected. So let's just say that no one in the community would have done anything. That woman and her son would have went to jail, and these people in this community would have continued being able to get away with it. Does that
Yeah,
resonate
like
with
I said,
anybody?
everybody went except for the father because he was at work. They took the mother, both her daughters, and the son.
But does that sound like some communities around here that we hear about people taking people's money, offering services, get the money and don't give the service to the people, or they plan these events, take the money, and don't nobody ever hear about the event, or the event gets pushed or postponed and then nobody saying about it. People in the community know about it, but people still do business with these individuals and still are partnered with them, either by sending them money or by supporting their YouTube channel or whatever it is. How is that tribal? How is that tribal law? How is that B&O code? And later on, I will break down what I mean by B&O code. Because at the end of the day, again, we have to clean up our own house before we start talking about cleaning up somebody else's house. So, you know, that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. But we'll keep everybody up to date on the information and the improvements that we make as we go along.
I am flying squirrel. It ain't just African scammers. It's Indian scammers too. It's called like it is. So,
Yeah, all of us ain't right. Let's don't even act like that.
and I know he said that as tongue in cheek, so I just want to put that out there. So,
Other than that, a normal day, I guess.
just a normal day in the neighborhood, right?
Yep.
So, where did we leave off yesterday? We left off realizing that the Indian agents, the last remaining Indian agents in the 1900s, from 1901 to 1909, were given new positions of school superintendents. Grand Rising Copper Colored Queen. So these Indian agents, whose responsibility was to basically transform these tribes from their tribal ways to these European ways, United States ways specifically, because by this time the 13 colonies had won the Revolutionary War and gained their independence from Great Britain, so to speak. So they go from being Indian agents to superintendents. And it talked about the whole purpose was to create a workforce, and anywhere that the Indian could be the workforce and the European could not, it at all costs allow the Indian to do the work and the European to basically supervise. And because alcohol was such a prevalent fixture in the mid to late 1800s, they had to ensure that alcohol prohibition was heavily enforced on the reservations. Now, this was before the whole United States went dry in the 1920s, right? So where did that alcohol come from? The alcohol came from goods and services that these Europeans were providing to the chiefs and the tribes for selling or seceding land and signing these treaties traditionally we weren't drinkers unless it's for medicinal purpose. We were smokers because we introduced tobacco to the individuals that came and colonized. So alcoholism was running rampant by the mid 1800s, and they knew that. But in order for them to have their workforce, they had to clean them up or dry them out, so to speak. And from what I'm understanding from some of the tribes that we're talking to, alcoholism is still running rampant on the reservations. So that problem still has not been resolved or fixed. So, you know, give you something to think about. And then we talked about the transition of always injecting some type of drug or altering narcotic into our communities to basically control us. So the newest one, the newest legal one, which is not new but is now marijuana. Government controls it, and we already know what they did with cigarettes, and I'm going to leave it at that. But what I would like to do now is talk about one of the individuals that was responsible for some of the treaties being signed, who has an interesting backstory. So when you hear about Apushinobi, Mushilatubi, and Pushmataha signing these treaties, there were other individuals that were involved, and it was part of what they call the Choctaw delegation that were part of these treaties being signed. And I'm reading from the link right now, from the Apushinobi link. So I'll put it in the chat so y'all can follow along if y'all able to. And these individuals that were part of the Choctaw delegation included Talking Warrior, Red Fort, Nitakachi, Colonel Robert Cole, and David Folsom. And it mentions that they were both Choctaw of mixed race. I mean, they distinguished these two individuals from Nitakachi, Red Fort, and Talking Warrior. So, you know how we do. Time to get your hard hats and let's go do some investigation. So no sellout. Do you have either David Folsom or Colonel Robert Cole pulled up?
Sorry, sir. No, I do not. I'm still. Oh, did you post those?
I did, but I got it. I can read it. No worries. Okay. I caught you off guard.
Yeah, I'm actually about to be driving. Actually, I was like, man, I thought I was gonna be able to do it too.
It's all right.
Really.
Come on, man.
Okay.
It's all
I got you.
It's
One
all...
of these days.
Really? That's what we're doing. So I'm going to be reading because I'm also put this in the chat for everybody to follow along. And like we always say, we don't just put these links in the chat for y'all to read and go along. We put this information in the chat so that if there were any errors on our behalf or anything that we missed, to correct us. It's all about accountability. Accountability works both ways. You know, I'm not above being corrected. Matter of fact, I encourage you.
Please do. If I make a mistake, please let me know.
So this is from the Mississippi Encyclopedia. They even put that it takes 3 minutes to read. They must don't know my reading level. Anyway, so David Folsom, 1791 through 1847, and he's listed as a Choctaw leader. So it says David Folsom was born in the village of Bach Tuklo in Mississippi Territory on 25 January 1791. His father was Nathaniel Folsom, a descendant of Scotch-Irish traders who traveled to Choctaw Territory during the 1770s and took 2 wives, both nieces of Choctaw chief Miko Pushkush.
What was his job?
Say again?
I'll say, what was his job? He's a hemp farmer.
Why does it sound well? Push Kush. We can create all kind of jokes, but I'm not gonna disrespect anybody's name because you know how we do.
Oh no, true indeed, true indeed. Let's move on.
But hold on, we ain't even in the first paragraph good, and we're finding out that in the 1770s there was a Scot-Irish trader. So you know we're gonna presume he was a fur trader, correct? Right? And he traveled to Choctaw territory. That means he had the intent of coming to the Choctaw territory during the 1770s and took 2 wives. Okay, so people don't read stuff into it because you know how we like to read stuff into it and create narratives. It said he traveled to Choctaw territory. It did not say him and an army traveled to Choctaw territory, right? Because if you look at the word he took 2 wives, that could make or have somebody assume erroneously that he captured these women, forced them into slavery, or raped them and just made them his wives. If for those of us who know anything about tribes, being Indian, and what it means to be able to take 2 wives, especially because the chief's name is mentioned, right? He didn't capture these women. He didn't rape these women. He was allowed to take 2 wives. Matter of fact, both of them was nieces of Chief Miko Pushkush. Since David's mother was Aya Nietzsche Ahoyo. Aya Nietzsche Ahoyo. One of 24 children. David became a principal instrument of change within the Choctaw Nation during the first half of the 19th century. So is it safe to say that David Folsom's father, or David Folsom, David Folsom's father, Nathaniel Folsom, was living with these Choctaw people? Is that safe to say?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So if that's the case, he was allowed to have 2 wives, which basically meant what? He was adopted into a tribe, right?
Facts.
You're just not going to get 2 of the chief's nieces and just take them somewhere.
And while you're saying that, I need people to also remember, at this time when people are getting married, they're not getting married for the reasons people do it today, for so-called love and this and that. No, marriages back then were political. It was about power and leverage.
Say that again because, there's a lot of people that do a lot of good work on the YouTube channels presenting this indigenous and Indian information. And I think sometimes when they're talking about these things, we're either in the back chats not paying attention or it's not emphasized for whatever reason. Especially the historians that do a lot of work and put a lot of time in. A shout out to them. So we want to focus on the actual transfer of power and what our responsibility in this transfer of power was. Because for those that do the history part, they're basically telling us what happened. We want to go behind the scenes and add and be an asset to that history and go deep and give you details and backgrounds and give you a sense of what could have possibly happened, because we know that this is just one version. This is one side of the story, not the full side. If you want to know how to get all 3 sides, you definitely need to be in communication with an Indian that's connected to a tribe that can give you that information. So, with that being said, Bones, can you repeat the purpose of marriage in the tribes dealing with the Europeans at this particular time?
Yeah, the purpose of marriage was for leverage and power. That's the only reason why a chief would have his daughters marry a European, because people keep forgetting who these Europeans was. The majority of them were boat captains. Let's stop forgetting that. So that's power and leverage. I have a boat captain now married into the family. So what does that mean? Transportation of goods and services. It's part of the family now. People still do it to this day. Majority of people do get married for leverage and power.
So is it safe to say that was something that they got from us? Because it's also been documented that there were tribes who were intermarrying for leverage and power, and having stronger tribes and eventually nations. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the next thing people got to remember this too. Anytime you read stories where they say they have a royal bloodline, that's hint for intermarrying. I hope y'all realize that. Only way these people believe to keep certain bloodlines pure, they married into relatives. I mean, it's facts. We'll look at it now like ew, but some people still doing that in 2019. That's a whole nother story. Don't want to talk about that, but hey, it's going on. It happens.
Wrote a song about it. Want to hear? Here you go now. So, so let's look at this a little further. Let's do some more reading. It says, where am I at? Okay, it says, one of 24 children, David became a principal instrument of change within the Choctaw Nation during the first half of the 19th century. So this is David Folsom. He's one of 24. So where it's interesting when you instead of reading for comprehension, you read for understanding. Basically, David was one of 24 children. That means between the two wives, Nathan Folsom, who is the father of David Folsom, who was on the Choctaw delegation, was one of 24 children. So his mother, Ayanichi Ahoyo, and his aunt, who was also, I guess for lack of a better term, his other mother, had 24 children together with Nathaniel. And it says that David was the instrument of change in the Choctaw Nation. So he had rank already in the early 1800s because his father, who was a trader, a Scotch-Irish trader, I'm assuming it was some type of fur or whatever that was being traded in that area. This is Mississippi Encyclopedia, so we're going to ascertain this was in Mississippi. And this relationship was a relationship of not only convenience, but also power and increase.
Yeah, business. They were doing business with each other.
So it reads, at the age of 7, Folsom left his parents' home to live with his sister Molly and her husband Samuel Mitchell, a U.S. Indian agent. Didn't we just find out what an Indian agent was?
Yep. They got that name Molly again. Wasn't that Joseph Brent half sister name too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna find out that these individuals are related. It says at the age of 7, Folsom left his parents' home to live with his sister Molly and her husband Samuel Mitchell, a U.S. Indian agent. So what was the purpose of the Indian agents when they were involved with these tribes? To basically indoctrinate them into the European ways?
Yep, get them to walk away, get them to change the American Indian agriculture to the European agriculture. Change our diet, our food, our way of life, yeah. Becoming Europeanized.
So at the age of 7, David went to live with his sister and her husband, who was an Indian agent. So basically, their goal was to indoctrinate this young man so that he could come back to the tribe and educate them and lead them. Let's keep that in mind. This is an Indian, y'all. He's what you would consider, some would consider a half-blood or mulatto. This is one of us. This is not the United States government inserting itself and making somebody adhere to some laws. This is somebody that's in the community, like somebody was in Bones' community, starting trouble. And I know that rubs some of y'all the wrong way, but you gotta accept it. What was that, Bones?
Dang. Yeah, I ain't gonna cuss, so I'm gonna say dang. So
Molly died 3 years later, and David returned home to work at his father's tavern and trading post at Pigeon Roost on Natchez Trace. At age 16, after earning enough money to buy a horse and new clothes, he traveled 250 miles to attend school on Elk River in Tennessee, staying there for 6 months. Upon his return, he received another month of education from James Allen, a friend of the Folsoms. Grand Rising Indigenous Intelligence. Between 1812 and 1814, the United States fought Shawnee Chief Tecumseh's Pan-Indian Alliance. Now remember, the Pan-Indian Alliance was those Indians who wanted nothing to do with the Europeans and felt that they should stay on code, meaning be with their own, follow their rules, follow their regulations, hold each other accountable, and they was also pro blood for blood, blood for blood law, meaning you take one of our Indians' lives,
I'm gonna take one of yours. Eye for eye.
which, by the way, kept peace until Greenwood LaFleur eradicated that. Who was a chief of the Choctaw, no doubt. So Chief Tecumseh Pan Indian Alliance, the Creek and the British, with the Creek and the British. For 3 years, Folsom served under Andrew Jackson and a renowned Choctaw and Chief Pushmahata. Folsom also aided Jackson in capture of Pensacola and rose to rank of colonel before leaving military service. After the war, Folsom married Rhoda Nail, the daughter of an American Revolutionary War figure, Henry Nail, and his Choctaw wife. Folsom's marriage was the first Choctaw union performed by law rather than tribal customs. See how that works? See how that goes? I'm gonna read that part again for those that don't get it. Folsom also aided Jackson in the capture of Pensacola, so we know Andrew Jackson wasn't some mythical character that was going around killing Indians. He had help, and he rose to the rank of colonel before leaving military service. After the war, David Folsom, married Rhoda Nail. Rhoda Nail was the daughter of American Revolutionary War figure Henry Nail and his Choctaw wife. Folsom's marriage was the first Choctaw union performed by law rather than tribal customs. Why is that important?
Because it was a contract. It's the first marriage contract.
And we're going to let that sink in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first union of a half-breed mulatto Indian and a Choctaw married by law rather than tribal customs. So
man, woman, state.
So there was no tribal custom. There was no married by law in a tribal custom. Okay. Now, forgive me for moving slow, but I want us to understand and really grasp what's going on here and understand how important it is to take responsibility for our part. Did the Europeans have a large part? Most definitely. Did they have 65 to 75% part? That's arguable. I'm not gonna say they didn't, but I'm not gonna say they were 100% to blame. So in 1819, Folsom wrote to the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions and request that it start schools to convert and educate Choctaw children.
Here we go again.
So it wasn't forced on him. He requested it.
Just like they requested the Quakers to come and build churches.
So I'm going to say it again. It wasn't forced on them. He requested it. So the whole purpose was to convert and educate Choctaw children. Supported by Folsom's private funds, missionaries built 2 schools, Elliott and Mayhew. Folsom argued that the Choctaw could survive settler encroachment and federal corruption only by embracing Christianity, reading and writing. His home at Pigeon Roost, located between the 2 schools, allowed him to monitor and manage the institutions, missionary curricula, and goods shipped to them. During the mid-1820s, he established a 150-acre estate, including a house, a barn, and stables at Yokanchaya on Robinson Road. Folsom also owned a tavern and trading posts, cattle and horses, and 10 slaves. Who do y'all think those slaves were? Just out of curiosity.
Them Indians.
So I'm gonna go back and cover.
Yeah, because it's funny that you said that too. That now that I think about it, everybody we read about before, they talked about them taking slaves, but you know what they didn't talk about? Nobody dropping nobody off from no other continent to be no slave.
It was probably on the bed somewhere.
Or Indians going, or Europeans and Indians going someplace to go pick up no slaves. It's like they going back to their village, getting into power, and the next thing you know, they got slaves.
So again, just like what went on in Bones community, we're getting done in by our own people. Now there was some influence because at the age of 6, he went to live with his sister and her Indian agent husband. So he got influenced. His way of thinking was influenced. But his sister was not raped or forced to marry an Indian agent. That was a political move. So let's stop creating the narrative that the colonizer had all the power, because they didn't.
Let's add this into it as well, that people keep forgetting about marriages at this time. At this time, very few people went out and just picked who they wanted to settle down with. A lot of marriages in these times were already prearranged. We cannot forget that this was a part of the culture at this time.
Well, the only way that people would know that is if they don't talk to their tribes.
Oh yeah, they'll tell you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you go out and create your own tribe, now you basically create your own rules. But if you talk to existing tribes, you'll realize that this stuff was actually happening. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, facts. Don't like it, but hey, it is what it is. Gotta face it now.
We're not here to make you comfortable. We're not here to make you happy. We're here to give you the information. We're here to make sure that we hold everybody accountable and we take responsibility.
I said, can't cry about spilled milk.
No weak Indians over here.
Yeah, you got to get something to clean the milk up before it sit there and make a bigger mess.
Exactly. So it says, Folsom vehemently opposed removal, a view that ended him the position of chief of the Northeast District of the Choctaw Nation in 1826. Oh, earned. I said ended. Because he opposed the removal, it earned him the position of chief of the Northeast District of the Choctaw Nation in 1826. So now he's a chief. Now
district.
So
in the areas.
So check this out. This part is important. He thus disposed full-blood chief Mushulatubi, who had opposed missionary schools and condoned removal, with fellow chiefs Greenwood LaFleur and John Garland, both of whom had white fathers and Choctaw mothers. I guess they raped these women too, huh?
Hey, here we go again.
Folsom established the first police force. Whoa, back up.
It's been ugly.
Folsom established the first police force, the Light Horsemen, and the first constitutional government in the Choctaw Nation. I'm gonna read that again for those that like to create these narratives.
Drop that bomb on them.
It says, Folsom established the first police force, the Light Horsemen, and the first constitutional government in the Choctaw Nation. So I would like to know what their bylaws were and how they were organized before they had a constitutional government, because it sounds like they copied what the Europeans copied from the Iroquois.
That's all it is. Copy and paste from here on out. They ain't gonna try to reinvent the wheel. They're gonna take what they know that works.
So here's an instance. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
No, all I'm saying, they're not gonna try to reinvent the wheel. They're gonna take what they know that works and run with it.
So in 1826, you have a full-blood chief, Mushulatubi, who we talked about 2 days ago. He was deposed. Now, what does it mean to be deposed? Because I don't know. Because that's important.
Well, they can off you. They can get you voted out. They can cause a coup. I mean, disposed.
Oh, removed from office suddenly and forcefully. Dude, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
He had been deposed by a military coup,
yep.
overthrown, overrun, toppled, bring down, remove from office, remove, unseat, dethrone, supplant, displace.
Hey, buddy, you ain't chief no more. I need that. Remove
How's
him.
wow?
When you got allies, think about it, you got British allies, they got a military and stuff. Yeah, that's possible. And why wouldn't they want to help you do that? Especially if these I'm gonna call them who they are. These boat captains who became owners of towns and land, if they wanted to make sure that they were cemented in, they would. Why wouldn't you send your son in there with a militia to take power?
And let's look at it this way too. Let's take into effect why that would be important for some tribes. Because remember, you have every tribe had a special purpose and function. Not every tribe did the same thing. And before these tribes were coming in contact with the Europeans, who were the keeper of the waterways? The Catawba, right? So if the Catawba are the keeper of the waterways, and then all of a sudden you start seeing these Europeans who have boats that can come and go as they please, and you start, you know, merging with them, you too can now have access, unfeathered access to the
Yep.
waterways. Something to think
Mm-hmm.
about. Now, this is speculation, so don't come at me like I'm making this as fact. This is the way that I'm looking at it from the standpoint of being from Catawba and understanding how powerful the Catawba were as far as being the keepers of the waterways. You don't get the title keeper of the waterways for being passive. I'm just saying. So having these alliances with these Europeans that actually had boats that were able to go and come as they please, you start, politicking and intermarrying with them. Now you have access to the waterways that the Catawba cannot mess with. So something to think about.
You have to ask yourself this too. How did they know about sacred areas and sites and lands? How did they know about family secrets? Because they were family.
So they learned about the sacred stuff because somebody told them. Remember, in order to learn something that's sacred, you have to earn your way in. Someone has to trust you. Someone has to vouch for you. That's how you learn about the sacred information.
And who's a better voucher for you than your mother? I'm just saying.
I mean, nobody I could think of.
Who can vouch for you better than your mother?
Grand Rising.
Especially your mother say so too. The mothers have say so on electing chiefs and getting chiefs out the way.
So apparently the council was cool with him being cool with Musha Tubi being overthrown because they couldn't have overthrown him without permission of the council. Just something to think about.
My mama said I can do it.
So we had permission from the council to overthrow you because they could not have done it. Because remember, there were instances where someone wanted to overthrow a chief and couldn't overthrow a chief. So don't create the narrative that the Europeans were instrumental in this chief being overthrown. The council had to vote, had to allow it to happen. And what it boils down to is basically tells me that Mushila Tubi didn't want to go, so he got kicked out.
Yep, he didn't want to go along with the deal. He didn't want the schools. He didn't want the missionaries.
So he
It's
had
like
to go.
before, like we said before, everybody didn't want to go along with it.
There's always remnants.
Mm-hmm. But you can see how it happened. It wasn't an outsider that changed it. Our own people. Whether true indeed he had a European father but an Indian mother. And what they say, you are what your mother is.
And in order for his father to marry his mother, the chief had to give his blessings. Not only did he give his blessings, but the chief gave him 2 wives. Not 1, but 2. And they had 24 children, and David Folsom was one of 24.
Yeah, because in most cases, the chief picked everybody's wife. People just I'm finna say it again, people just didn't walk around like, hey, you want to get married? No. That concept of marriage didn't come around to the 1940s and 1950s. Marriage in these times is political move.
Exactly.
It was for legacy. It was to keep power. It was to keep order.
Joe
Why would,
47 said 2 wives. Yeah, bro, two.
why would the chief daughter, let's look at it this way. A chief or any high-ranking member, why would they let their child marry anybody? Then that's bringing anybody into the family. You see that now. You don't see high political ranking of Donald Trump's daughter just ain't finna go marry anybody. I'm gonna make it that simple. They ain't bringing anybody to family dinner. Anybody ain't just coming strolling through the family reunion.
Exactly. Grand Rising Joe 47, Grand Rising LJ Free. We're talking about David Folsom. And come to find out, he goes on record as the first Indian to marry a Choctaw and it be by law versus tribal tradition.
One time for them contracts.
So it says in 1830, Garland and Folsom gave their power as chief to LaFleur. Now remember, 1830 was during the time frame that Doodoo Vision's six-time grandfather was killed because he didn't want to sign that Dancing Rabbit Creek Treaty. So this
ain't these the chiefs that signed it?
Right.
Eventually, from the chiefs that signed it. So you see how they removing the chiefs that didn't want to sign it.
So in 1830, it says Garland and Folsom gave their powers as chief to LaFleur. I guess so. They didn't want to be murked like the other chief was. And this is the reason why it's important to have someone who's connected with their tribe, because they can give you that information. And also too, Doodle Vision did give us a copy of that book that verifies what he says, and that book the link to that book will be put on the website.
Yeah, and the website will be back up and running in place at 12 today. It just was a lot to move. They had to I told them to keep it the same. I didn't want to lose none of the genealogy work people did.
Oh yeah, so that's a lot.
Yeah, so yeah. But it'll be up by 12 today. Everything will be back to normal.
So you'll be able to access that book that verifies what Doodle Vision was saying. So because of that, we can actually verify that there was a chief that was killed he didn't want to sign the Dancing Rabbit Creek Treaty, which explains why Garland and Folsom would give their power to Chief LaFleur, because they didn't want to get killed. So although LaFleur had claimed to oppose removal, in September of that year, he orchestrated the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek, which provided that the Choctaw would move to the west of Mississippi River, fearing LaFleur's new power deteriorating relations with the federal government and threats from press. Andrew Jackson and his treaty commissions, Folsom signed the treaty. He was scorned for his signing, but aided in the removal efforts to Oklahoma Territory.
Sound like there's a third party putting pressure on somebody here.
Mm-hmm. Rhoda Folsom died in 1837, and 4 years later, Folsom married Jane Ball. He fathered a total of 13 children and died on 24 September 1847 in Dokesville, Oklahoma. Dokesville, Oklahoma.
You know what's interesting that I'm noticing?
What's that?
We were not the only ones having 13, 14, 15, 16 children. You notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that. Grand Rising, Mark Walton.
It's starting to unravel. I don't know. I can't speak for nobody else, but it's starting to unravel for me.
What do you care to share?
Is that at this time, you have people having 13, 14. One dude, they had 24 children.
Yeah,
let's add time to that. Them children done crossed into more Aboriginal children. And they done crossed into more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you peel the layers back, how do you remove anybody when you're going to find out everybody's connected? Mm-hmm. You just have to find out to who and how. Because again, if a lot of us go back to these tribes, these people are part of these tribes. And it don't matter how you want to look at it, that's the facts. That we're reading stories that they're part of the tribes. And me, myself, I don't like it, but it's something we have to deal with.
Mark Walden says that he appreciated our work digging up this info. Go back and listen to it. I wish I could catch you live. Mark, the whole purpose of us putting this information out is to help, just like the other channels before us, or the other channels that were here before us and the other channels that are here now. The goal is to get this information out to help better everybody's situation. So that's what we're here for, bro. Smoking Big 06 says, big ups. This is my first time seeing this channel. Is it new? Loving the info. Well, according to a lot of people, we are new. So I guess the answer is yes, we are new.
To an extent.
Yeah, to an extent. Age-wise, no, but information, yes. I've only been tied to my tribe since January of this year, and I found out about this community April, May of last year, and because of the people that came before me that share the information, like Cody Mayo, he is always giving information. So if you ever go to his channel, you're gonna need a big hard drive because he drops all the information. And then you have individuals like Wanagi starting to do the same thing, and you have Tade that Tribe Up. Just a lot of individuals that were the reason why we do what we do, and also Dane Calloway. That's how I got initially introduced to everybody else. So big ups to them for paving the way and continue to do their work. So yes, we are new, but that don't mean we ain't working. So I'm going to put another link in the chat, and it's going to give you some more information on David Folsom. So, and it's important to note because what I read from was the Mississippi Encyclopedia. And so for those of you who are just coming in, we're talking about David Folsom, who was one of the signers of the Dancing Rabbit Creek Treaty. And it mentioned that he was a mixed Choctaw. He was mixed blood Choctaw. His father was Scott Irish, and his mother was the daughter of a Choctaw chief.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that source. And now what I just put in the chat is another source. And I'm gonna scroll down a couple because they got these broken down to paragraph sentences. It says he was a student at the Mayhew Mission. It says students at Mayhew Mission wrote to Folsom after he had visited. We rejoice to think that we have a chief who is a friend to his people and wishes their good and favors the schools in the nation. Had it not been for you and the friends of the mission, we think we should have been wandering about in the wilderness. These are Indians that have sent this to him. So the indoctrination has already begun.
Yeah, what was their slogan? Kill the Indian, save the man.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, it then goes on to read, and this is crucial and critical because it lets us know that there's a changing of the guard. Remember, David Folsom replaced a full-blooded Indian, Mushi Latubi, and he was removed.
By force.
He was forced to remove.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the council approved it because they didn't uphold it. The military went in and helped him remove the chief. So, yeah.
So it says, David, along with other mixed bloods, were greatly influenced by Protestant missionaries. Remember, David he requested that these schools be built.
Yep.
It was not forced. So
this teaching Choctaw's religion.
Right. So if you want to point blame at somebody, yeah, you can point it to Scott Irish, but you also got to point it to his Choctaw mother and his Choctaw chief grandfather, because they had to have the blessing. So such as Cyrus Kingsbury, They intermarried and were converted to their religion while maintaining the better qualities of Indian culture, their honesty, independence, and other tribal ways. So again, it says David, along with other mixed bloods, were greatly influenced by Protestant missionaries, such as Cyrus Kingsbury. They intermarried and were converted to their religion while maintaining the better qualities of Indian culture, their honesty, independence, and other tribal ways. So basically, what we're looking at is that you have these mixed bloods of what was at this time considered to be mulattoes taking over chiefdoms. They're replacing full blood chiefs. We allowed that to happen. When I say we, I'm talking about our tribes, our committees, because they were looking for power. They were looking for position. They were looking for leverage. If you know anything about business, the more leverage you have, the more accommodating the deal will be. Arthur Gray says, hey, here is a good book that gives some insight on the Cherokee history. It's called Slavery in the Cherokee Nation, The Key to a Society and Defining of the People of 1855 through 1867 by Patrick M. Mingus. So yeah, if you get a chance, check that book out. Thanks, Arthur. Appreciate you, bro. And then LJ Free, of course, always on point. She says, isn't there a Folsom prison? Am I saying the name wrong? Yeah, it's spelled Folsom. I think there is a Folsom prison. So, Grand Rising, Golden Moon. And don't worry, Arthur, it's all good. You know, anytime you can bring some information, we definitely appreciate it. He says, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this book explains how the secret societies infiltrated the Cherokee tribes and took control. And I'm glad you brought that up. And that's the reason why we this chat is awesome, because when we go back and think about what happened with Joseph Brant, wasn't he inducted into a secret society?
Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, you don't have to apologize. No, I mean, that's what we're here for. If you have information that can help, then feel free to put it forward. You know what I'm saying? Nobody knows it all, and no one here claims to be the scholar or the know-all of Indian ways in life. So it takes all of us sharing information to get a better understanding. So you don't have to apologize.
Yeah, because I promise you, there are people in this chat that's been studying this Indian history and studying our tribes a lot longer than I have. So I am under no false impression that I know everything. I'm just learning. So we wanted to bring this to your attention about this is during the time period that a lot of these mulatto children are now chiefs, and they are usurping or deposing or replacing the full-blood chiefs. So what's happening is now that these chiefs are starting to look more like the Europeans, and they have more of the European ideology, which makes it easier for the land to be seceded because these chiefs have the best of both worlds. The chiefs don't lose anything.
No, they don't. Whatsoever. Them and their family, think about it. He's a child out of 24. So he got 23 more sisters and brothers. You think he left them out in the cold? Who you think got these first seats? Who was filling up these positions when they was forming the country in these states? Remember, they're forming the country at the same time. At the same time they breaking up Indian land, what are they doing? They're turning them into districts and states. Who are they giving control of these districts? You heard that they gave him the Northwestern district. So who had the other districts? Don't we see that now? People get in political power, bring in relatives, cousins. There's nothing new up under the sun. We just got to pay attention and face it.
And also, too, here's the next sentence that's very important to read. It says, at Folsom's new home year near Yakancheya on Robinson Road, tribe members raised cotton, made cloth, and operated blacksmith shops, but still enjoyed their visiting, singing, feasting, and playing their traditional stickball games.
Baseball.
So listen to this. Remember, the Indian agent's job was to do what? Was to get them to leave their tribal ways and
Become
move
individual.
towards an individual way. So instead of communal living, to have independent homes and your own separate land to separate us. So what we're seeing is the transitioning of this. And this is not my information. This is nothing that I created. This is look up the definition of what an Indian agent is and what an Indian agent is supposed to do, and then go talk to some of the tribes in these areas, and they will
And
they will
hey, for
they will
those who
follow.
missed it, what did the Indian agents eventually become?
They end up becoming school superintendents.
Oh,
LJ Free hit it right on the head. Nepotism. Arthur Gray says, just glad of a group that is focused on genealogy and history rather than debating Pan Africans. Keep doing what you do. At the end of the day, Arthur, it's about helping those that want to find their lineage. If that's not something that a person wants to do, my job is not to force them. I'm not here for them. That don't mean I wish ill of them. I wish them well in whatever their endeavors are, because that's their business. That's not my
yeah.
business. Our business is helping those who have heard that they have Indian in their family do their genealogy to either confirm that they have Indian in their family through genealogy and then tying into tribes and then letting the tribes determine what's going on. Or if they find that they have Europeans or Africans in their family, but at least knowing exactly where you come from and who you are. Because without doing a genealogy, you don't know. And when we say genealogy, we're not talking about getting a DNA to test. We're talking about going through your family tree, doing the actual work, not letting somebody take your saliva and then tell you where you at based off of some test that says for entertainment purposes only. So again, we're here because we're minding our business and nobody else's. But we are about accountability and we are about keeping on code. So then it goes on to say, strife had begun within the tribe. Now this is important. The full bloods wish to retain their native ways. The mixed blood leaders such as Folsom, Louis LaFleur, and John Pitchland favored a more educated and civilized life for the tribe while retaining their beloved homeland in Mississippi. Now, of course, this is written from a European standpoint, which is the reason why they put civilized, making it sound like these Indians were quote unquote savages. They weren't savages and they weren't wild Indians. Um, DeSoto has already been quoted in his journal that saying that when he came here, he came across over 5 million civilized people that actually had more of a proper civilization than they had in Rome. So don't believe me, go do the research. So just think about this. The full bloods wish to retain their native ways, but the mixed bloods wanted to indoctrinate, right? So what do you think happened? There started to become civil wars,
Yep.
right? There were civil wars. So if there's civil wars, then remember, there is no more blood for blood law. So taking the Indian life don't mean jack now. I could take your life and I ain't got to worry about giving up a life for my family.
But what also did we learn about Civil War? I'm finna say it again. Civil War. What did we learn about that about a month ago?
Don't keep us waiting. Tell us.
How can you have a civil war? You're being civil, but you're fighting?
Okay, internal war, internal strife. I stand corrected. My bad, my bad. I'm tired. That's that accountability piece. So the issue of slavery also split the tribe further. The issue of slavery also split the tribe further. Well off aristocratic landowners such as John Pitchland, who was also half Choctaw, who owned 200 acres and 50 slaves, were swayed to desire to keep their plantations. Chief Mushalatubi owned 10 slaves for his 30 acres. Most of the members of the nation, however, lived off the land communally. An issue that would erupt again when the idea of dividing the future Oklahoma land into individual allotments came up. Bam. What was the purpose of the Indian agent
To get the Indians to convert over
from
from
communal living.
living to individuals.
So here's the thing that I didn't understand that just got brought to fruition for me. You know, I'm a little slow when it comes to some things. What they were doing with these lots in Oklahoma, they were breaking the acres down into lots like we have now. So you had a house on a plot of land. So this is the first time that I'm hearing. Again, if anybody has any other information, please bring it forth. But this is the first time that I'm hearing of our tribes going from communal living to neighborhoods. And the only way that was able to work was you had the chiefs who were aristocrats who were already living in neighborhoods. See, they were
Yep.
already separate. They were no longer living communally. They had their house, they had their plantation, so they had their acreages of land and they had their slaves, which was no more than their family members.
Yeah, other Indians that they enforced to do the work.
So this is the first time that I'm seeing that you are now starting to separate the community. And instead of it being communal where we live together under, in one area, we are now having our own plots of land. So instead of having, everybody being on tens of thousands of acres and we roaming and chilling, now you have your house, I have my house, and now we're neighbors. We're no longer a tribe. And they were able to do this by first giving the chiefs land and separating the chiefs from the tribes. So the chiefs don't live with the tribes. So if your chief is not living with you, how can the chief have an understanding of what's important to you? And if your chief is not living with you 9 times out of 10, I would dare say the council's probably not living with you either, because these chiefs, the majority of the council members were family.
Their mothers and aunties.
Yep. Because remember Donald Folsom's mother and his aunt was married to his father. So you don't think his mom and his aunt, who were basically a aristocracy in the Indian life, lived with the commoners, aka with the rest of the Indians, they lived with him.
And they 24 chilling.
Now it goes on to talk about the land-hungry white pioneers, however, were lobbying President Jackson to move the Choctaw out of Mississippi westward. Similar removals were being sought against other tribes, including the Creeks of Alabama, the Cherokee of Tennessee and Kentucky, and Seminoles of Florida. So all this was going on simultaneously.
At the same time.
Okay. Smoking Big 06 says, school superintendent. You said, shaking my head. Yeah, school superintendent. Yeah, Libra Sun is colonization in its purest forms, but we allowed it. We ushered it in and we invited it. Again, we got to take full responsibility. We started this. We pioneered this. We ushered it in. They didn't kick in the door. We opened the door, invited them in, started intermarrying, because at the end of the day, we weren't always tribes that were peaceful. You got to realize, tribes before the colonizer got here, and this is the reason why it's so important to tie back into your tribe, because the chiefs and the genealogists can tell you this. You had tribes that were already intermarrying to become bigger. And think about this. Let's look at it from this perspective. If I'm a chief of a big tribe and you're the chief of a big tribe, wouldn't it make more sense for my son to marry your daughter, or vice versa? So not only to want to maintain peace, but what happens to our tribe? It gets bigger. We're not going to.
Not forget that marriages of these types are pre-arranged. Ain't nobody going out there, oh yeah, I want them. No, they're prearranged. The man gave him 2 of his daughters. Sound prearranged to me.
So and so I'm speaking from a standpoint of before the colonizers got here. So if you look at the five nations who were in Iroquois, they were the ones that had the first peace treaties. That peace treaty was between them. Go back and look it up. That peace treaty was between them before the colonizers got here. So you don't become five nations by accident. That was a plan. And the Mohawk of that five nations end up being where the chiefs were bred. I'm gonna say it again. The Mohawk of the Iroquois of the five nations were where the chiefs were bred because the mothers were the actual princesses of those tribes. So
And they were picking the chiefs.
exactly through the council. So we have to do a better job of understanding how our tribes work and how tribes work and stop speculating on what happened and making these wild allegations without even knowing. Because a lot of false narratives are being created because people are choosing not to talk to chiefs. They're choosing not to have conversations with existing tribes. They just want to make up their own stuff just by right off of something that they read. The information that we read, whether it's from Wikipedia or whether it's from the Library of Congress, is always going to be one-sided. Because here's one thing I can guarantee you: if you look at the Library of Congress and look up under Chief Mushalatubi or a Chief Apukshanubi, you won't find out that one of the chiefs was killed because he wouldn't sign the treaty of Dancing Creek Rapid. You won't find that out. So how does somebody come across that information? From talking to their tribe. So if you're under the assertion, or if I'm under the assertion that the only way you're going to get the real information is just from some book, from some what some people call a colonizer or European, and you're not going to talk to the tribes, you're kidding yourself. You're only getting one half of the information. And actually, you're only getting 1/3.
Because I look at this scenario. We're seeing right now how David and them, they are Indians. They're Indians. Their mother Indian, they're Indian. So what happens when you do your genealogy and you find out that's crossed in your family? Are you going to remove yourself or are you going to claim the Indian side? And I say, think about that for a second. Because in reality, isn't that what they're doing? And we just not claiming our Indian side, which we have on both sides, but we ain't trying to claim neither one.
And you got to remember, before the census was ushered in 1790, there were already mulatto chiefs. A lot of the full-blood chiefs were already being ushered out or deposed.
Yeah, before the census even came.
So that means there were already Europeans who had seeds in the tribes. I'm not trying to be crass. I'm just trying to give it to you so you can understand the importance of why the census was put out when it was put out. That census wasn't created until after they already had children in position of power. What was the first book that was published?
Spelling.
Oh, okay. Then after the spelling book was published, then they started creating all these patents they got from our people. Patents popping up left and right. So let's not be under this false narrative that there are people on this land who look European that are not Indians, that don't tie to this land. If you are not tied into a tribe right now, and I'm not saying this to be disparaging or to make you feel bad, but if you're not tied into a tribe right now, President Bush and his sons and his daddy got more right to this land than you do. That's a fact.
That's a fact, because they tie back into a tribe, whether you like it or not.
A Mohawk tribe, Algonquin. They can tie back to a chief. Can you?
Can you say that one more time for the people that might not have heard you?
Chief Corn Planter is their fourth-time cousin. That's by blood. They know who they are. We don't know who we are. Time to wake up.
Grand Rising Libra Sun, Grand Rising Big Hawk. Like I was saying, I'm gonna say it again for those. Again, if you got an issue with it, prove it different. If you are not tied into a tribe right now, You you have less right to this land than President Bush.
Real talk. They tie directly back into Chief Corn Planter by blood. He's their blood relative.
And I ask you, please prove me wrong. Please, 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 please prove me wrong. Please show me how somebody that is not tied into a tribe has more right than somebody that is tied into a tribe. I'll wait. I'll wait. I'll wait.
You wonder why a lot of these large political figures and entities can move the way they move on this land. Because I'm going to say it again. Do the research, you're going to learn they tie back into these tribes. They're moving, we're not. They're participating, we're choosing not to participate or try to reinvent the wheel.
I want to say Grand Rising to a Choctaw who has ties to his tribe and has a lot of history. That would be Sir Doodoo Vision.
Grand Rising, peace, Doodoo.
Peace, James.
TMH, greetings, brother, no sellout, greetings, brother Bones. You all were right on it, spot on. I just wanted to go back to something that you mentioned about the Choctaw and how they did what they did. And while there is to this day still a separation from what you call Choctaw that in Oklahoma and the Mississippi Choctaw. Because, we read that the Choctaw has never raised an arrow or a gun to the colonies nor the United States. Now, that's true for your Oklahoma Choctaw. And you mentioned before about the plots of land. I don't know if you gentlemen recall. And greetings to those in the chat. I apologize for everyone that's in the chat. I can't see you. But we were discussing the Choctaw a few weeks ago. And I was breaking down that the Choctaw Reservation in Oklahoma is not a reservation, but they are counties. Because, it goes from those plots of land to neighborhoods to counties. So the Choctaw Reservation is not a reservation. It's 11 counties in Oklahoma. So where the rest of the Indian reservations are actually on pieces of land that are reserved for them. Now, the separation between the Choctaw in Oklahoma and the Mississippi Choctaw is that the Mississippi Choctaw actually fought against the Europeans from all angles. You will read about them as well because they joined forces with the Creek/Cree/Seminole/Yamasee, all of the above during the Red Stick Wars. So there's a separation between, although we're tied by blood, but there is a separation between the Choctaw in Oklahoma and the Mississippi Choctaw. And there are two separate branches with two separate constitution and bylaws. I yield the mic.
And what was the trick that they played on the Choctaw that didn't move? Didn't they turn all them into U.S. citizens overnight?
Yes, sir. And then they were labeled as Negro. And then, although they were not slaves, so they were still on their land, some of them got listed as slaves. And it was like, how can you be a slave on your own land? That's the crazy part that comes back. They were listed as slaves, so you're reading in certain books that they were slaves, and they're saying, well, we were never enslaved. But when you have those overseers, those superintendents that were in charge of those areas, they labeled you. And remember, at that time, it was illegal for us to read. So they were making all these books and changing all these things and literally rewriting history. And we had no knowledge of it because it was illegal to read. I have a great-great-granddad that was actually pulled off of his wagon because he was reading a book outside of town in Alabama. And this was so-called during the slave time. But he was never a slave. He knew how to read and write. So, yeah, that's the trick that they played and continue to play and pitting us against one another. Because, again, you had those mulattoes that were chiefs of tribes and those that would not sign, they got rid of them. They excommunicated them or they killed them and started killing off their family members. So you have three different branches of Choctaw. Again, those that went west, and especially under President Andrew Jackson at that time, those that decided that they were just going to leave and ended up in Louisiana and Texas and that region there. And then you had those that stayed that got labeled as Negro and so-called slaves, but they were never slaves.
So, Doodle Vision, quick question. Now, we read and we heard, so please correct us because you have direct ties to your tribe and you know your elders and the council, and they have this information both written and oral. Now, we heard that once the Choctaw got to Oklahoma, they sent word back to the other Choctaw in Mississippi that they were no longer Choctaws. Can you give us some more insight on how that happened and what transpired with that, please?
Yes, sir. Because the Choctaw in Oklahoma, as I mentioned it earlier, they had cut a deal with the United States. And so they were saying that all of those that did not move west as part of that deal were actually no longer Choctaw, which is why today you have Choctaw, if you look it up, and then you have Mississippi Choctaw. The Choctaw in Oklahoma and the Mississippi Choctaw have two separate chiefs for that reason. And we have reclaimed who we are because our people have never left that land. And that's the issue. And so they were pretty much removed by those Choctaws that decided to take sides with the United States and get their plots of land in Oklahoma, which also ties into the Oklahoma Sooners. You know about those that started putting stakes in the ground early. But that's another subject for another time. I actually touched on that another day. And so they received word back that they were no longer Choctaw. And so that made it easier for the United States government to say, hey, you guys are slaves because now you guys are foreigners and we own you because your own people have disowned you. And that's what a rift is still today. They're trying to reunite, but that cut to the quick between the Choctaw and Mississippi Choctaw. So, and I don't know if that will ever be reconciled. And the only way it could be reconciled is if the Oklahoma Choctaw actually release a formal apology, to our chief and all the descendants of the Mississippi Choctaw. But yeah, I'm telling you, the hatred and the animosity runs deep. I yield the mic.
Another quick question, or just to clarify for people. The Mississippi Choctaw is not a tribe that the people in Mississippi started on their own. They're tied into Choctaw through genealogy and blood, so they had the right to stand up for who they are, right? I just want to make sure people understand this.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
You was breaking up. You went in and out.
I don't know if I cut off if y'all could hear me. I was getting a phone.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Repeat it.
The Mississippi Choctaw is not a new branch of Choctaw. The Mississippi Choctaw, we are staking the claim that we are the original, genuine Choctaw that settled in that land from the beginning of time, before there was time. And that those that went to Oklahoma, we're not saying that they are not related to us, but we're saying they're not us because they betrayed us, if that makes sense. You can have family members that you're still related by blood, but you're not related because they decided that, hey, they want to do their own thing and separate. So the Mississippi Choctaw is not some fly-by-night new tribe. These are the tribes that are still there in that land. You're tied to the Turners, the Rosses, my people, all the people they're still there in those lands, those that never left. So, and they still own the original lands that are there. So no, Mississippi Choctaw is not a new tribe. It's just taking those that remain in that area from Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, all in that region there that stayed in that area, that never left. So that's the only difference. But they didn't start a new tribe. They were always there.
quick question, because Libra Sun brings up a great point. He says white magic and paper genocide. So, from what I understand, and please correct me, interrupt me if I misquote or misstate, because again, this is your tribe. This is a tribe that you know, and you've forgotten more about your tribe than I know. So, with that being said, is it safe to say that because by the mid 1700s, there were already mulatto chiefs who had European fathers and Choctaw mothers? Did the chief, let's go back, let's talk about David Folsom in particular. David Folsom was half Choctaw and half Scott Irish. Did his chief get forced into giving his daughters to his Scott Irish father, Nathaniel Folsom, from what you know?
No, they were willingly doing it because it was on both ends. Because the Scott Irish were also giving their daughters to our men, so it was understood because they were living amongst us. They were us. They had taken on our ways. As the book that I shared with y'all before, which is actually a journal, a collection of writings, and they call them traits. Traits and characteristics, saying that they studied our traits, they studied our characteristics, and they lived amongst us, and we still do that today. We'll call people, that's my cousin, and you're not any blood related, or this is my brother, this is my sister, and we're not blood related. You lived amongst us so long, you're adopted in, you're one of us. So it went both ways. No one was really forcing anyone to marry anyone. It was just happening. And the offspring was saying, hey, we're our own group of people. You guys aren't. It's saying that the Indians were not fully accepting these mulatto children. And then, of course, the Europeans weren't accepting them at all. So you created another class or caste of people. And this is what was happening. So you had those that did not want any interaction with the Europeans. And then those that did want interaction with the Europeans, and they started having children, and that's where literally the war came in, as you mentioned before about the Civil War. It was when you have the same blood in you, you shed the same blood. So all rules are off. It's game on.
So is it safe to say, because I really want people to understand this, because you know me, I hate when people try to create a narrative for A2. Is it safe to say, because we can only speak for tribes that we know about, we're not speaking for all tribes, I want to put that out there, because I don't want nobody to come back and say we're saying this happened in all tribes, but from the tribes that you know about, for the tribes that you study, because you are tied into a tribe, is it safe to say that our ancestors, were partly responsible for the colonizers coming in and indoctrinating us?
I say 95%, and the reason being is when the colonizers were not running all over North, Central, and South America like that. They were forced to stay along the coastal water. They had to be invited in. They didn't know the land. That's why when people start talking about the colonizers did this in Tennessee and Kentucky, I'm like, do you know how far inland that is? When you start talking about what they were doing in the northern parts of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and Louisiana, there's no way they could have done this. There's no way that this was forced. They were invited in. They were only able to stay along the coast. For example, the French lived along the Mississippi River, but that's another subject for another time with those Cajuns. But what we know as the French today, when they came over, they were only allowed to stay at the port of New Orleans. They were not allowed to go inland. And remember, the port of New Orleans is really a soup bowl. That's why people have to be buried on top of the land. They gave the Europeans the worst land. So they gave them all the marshland and swampland, which is why they flip-flopped it on us now. And they were giving us the worst land. Because we did it to them. They didn't invent anything. We showed them those ways. 95% of what's going on is we initiated. And with that, I'm not speaking on anybody's behalf. I'm speaking as me. I'll take a page out of Brother Thompson's book. Prove me wrong. Because I have the proof to show you we did it to ourselves.
Now, I was being generous and saying we was only 45 or 35% responsible. You said 95%. Okay, fair enough. So, do you have a few more minutes to spare, James? Because I wanna cover something, and because again, I want to get multiple perspectives, and this is something that we're going to be doing, and we encourage everybody else to do, because I like to promote and clarify what A2 is about. So do you have a few more minutes to spare with us?
Yes, sir. I sure do.
Okay. So I got an email yesterday, and shout out to the chat, because chats always listen to other YouTubes, and shout out to all the YouTubes channels that put out this information that help us learn and grow, because I learn from y'all. And somebody had asked me, they was like, well, y'all always talk about being on code. And I was listening to a YouTube channel, and they was talking about being on code, and that, your code, being on code could potentially be connected with ADOS. I guess that's, African descendants of slaves. So they wanted me to clarify what I meant by being on code.
American descendants of slaves.
Okay, so for the record, we are not promoting American descendants of slaves. That's not what we're promoting. We don't support it. We're not telling you not to support it, but that's not something that we are about. We are about helping people find their tribes and tie into your tribes. So if you're about tying into your tribe, and if you're listening to any of the information that's being put out, not only by the archives, not only by the Wikipedia pages and information that we drop, the PDFs, and by individuals who are tied to their tribes, you have never heard us say anything about ADOS. So we don't support that. We don't speak on it, because that's not what we're about. We don't get into that. So if that's something that people want to do, that's fine, but that's not something I'm about. And when I talk about being on code, I'm talking about sticking with the tribal laws. I'm talking about holding people accountable. I'm talking about making sure that my house is clean, your house is clean, and that if someone is doing something they have no business, we either give them an opportunity to correct it, or we remove them from our community. That's what I mean by being on code. That's what I mean by doing what's right and getting right. It has nothing to do with ADOS. It has nothing to do with anything other than tribal law. Getting back to being a tribe. And because I'm new to this, and again, I ain't even a year in Indian as far as this information, I want to, if possible, James, if you can please, from somebody that we consider an elder in this, and who's been around the YouTube streets, so to speak, before there was a YouTube streets, who's been an Indian before there was a YouTube streets, so who understands this, can you please explain to those what being on code means to you? And I yield the mic.
Oh, it's real easy. I can sum it up. I know that some of us have, we are our own bosses now. We're entrepreneurs. We run our own business. But prior to that, we've all worked for someone else, whether, small business or corporation or whatever the case may be. When you are hired on, or when you are retained, you go through orientation. And when you're going through orientation, one of the things that you receive, whether it's a booklet, a handout, or a sheet of paper, it has a code of ethics. And the code that we're referring to is a code of ethics. Now, there's a difference between a code of ethics and law. Because there's something that can be legal to do, but it is morally wrong. And that's the code that we're talking about. That's why when it is saying about not affiliating with scammers and not associating with those that are connected with scammers, now, you legally connect yourself to a scammer. Morally, ethically, it is wrong. That is the code that we're referring to, not a code that's dealing with African descendants of slaves. Because here's the kicker. It's difficult to explain African descendants of slaves when you start to see on these ships manifest that those Africans that did come were never slaves. That's why you'll find the name that they're Prince whatever, or there's Prince this and Prince that. You'll find that there's a Wilcox family that you find it spelled two different ways, and one was a NFL player some years back. But Wilcox, where you spell it W-I-L-C-O-X or W-I-L-C-O-T-T-S, Wilcox, that they came over from Africa and they on the ship to manifest and settled in Tennessee. These people, when you'll find out the majority of them that came over here were not slaves. They may have come over as indentured servants because they paid for the trip. That's how you paid off for the trip. You
Bingo.
worked 7 years, and then after that, you were free. You were free to move about the land. So you had your piece of paper stating, I paid off my time and did my 7 years. So when they started doing that, then you started having those that were over here and said, wait a minute, we don't want people to be free for 7 years, so we'll just start kidnapping Indians and taking them from one land mass to another and making them slaves for perpetuity. This is where this came from. These were not people coming over here on slave ships. That's why you won't find those slave ships like that. You won't. They came over here as indentured servants. So what's the difference between them and the Scott Irish? Nothing. The Scott Irish came over here, those AKA Dutch, did the same thing. You had to pay off your debt, which is why it's still in the place today. When you have something on your credit, after 7 years, the debt is wiped clean, even if you didn't finish paying it off.
I wonder why that is.
Yep, there you go. I yield the mic. Yeah, but it is a code of ethics. That's what we're referring to. Not a code trying to affiliate with any African descendants of slavery. They can do what they want to do. If that's the path they want to take, then by all means they can take that path. But you'll find it awfully difficult to show that you are an African descendant of slaves versus your people could have been enslaved, but your people could have been prisoners of war. And you hear me? I never said that there were no Africans that came over here. I will never say that. I'm saying it's not like we've been told. They came over here as indentured servants and they paid off their debt. And a lot of them just paid their way over here straight out because they already had money.
And to the question in the chat about being federally recognized, you got to remember some tribes are local, some are state, some are federal, and some have all three recognitions. Some have two, and a lot of times it could be like something in how they set up why it's not at the federal level yet. But make sure I'll be breaking that down.
Go ahead, James. You was about to say something. Go ahead.
I was saying that to become federally recognized or state recognized, it's not something that happens overnight. A lot of times it's taking 25 and 30 years for them to be recognized. Now, you don't necessarily have to be recognized, but you could be acknowledged. And there's a difference. To be recognized, you can say, okay, yes, this is one of the number of tribes that are recognized, but you can be acknowledged by the state. And how you acknowledge by the state is as simple as this. You send them correspondence, and they send that correspondence acknowledging that they received your correspondence. Guess what? By law, you are acknowledged. It's really that simple as sending an email to the proper channel. And if you do a read receipt and it shows that they read your email, you are now acknowledged. I yield the mic.
Antonio asked a question: did the Catholic Church colonize Africa, the continent of so-called Africa, before they came here? No, they were doing it at the same time. See, that's the part of world history people skip out on. At the same time people were colonizing here, they're over there colonizing there. And matter of fact, the British was fighting the Zulu in the 1800s. I said again, at the same time that there was wars here, there was an opium war going on.
Yep, opium war. There were two opium wars, as a matter of fact. One opium war was going on around the same time as the Revolutionary War, and there were some Indians over there fighting in that war.
Yep, over there on the Asian continent.
So hopefully we have cleared up any misconception about what it means to be on code. So I do apologize for not being clear for what it means to be on code. And for those of you who thought that we were pushing an ADOS agenda, that is not the case. What we're trying to do, and what we've always been trying to do, is make sure for those who have heard that they have Indian in their family and wish to connect with their family and connect with their tribe and answer the roll call and be connected with their land so they can then help their tribe and then create this leverage so they can get whatever recognition and self-autonomy that they need. That's what we're here for. We're not here for debates. We're not here to talk about anybody else's business. We're here to make sure we stay on code. And if you're claiming to be Indian or autochthonous or whatever it is, and because you got to realize whatever we do affects the other. So if you're claiming to be an Indian, right, and you doing some old fugazi stuff, not only are they looking at you, they looking at us. So if you're not on code, then that's going to make us look bad. So, I mean, don't really care about how you feel about it, but I'm going to call it out. And we're not standing for it. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be looked at badly or wrongly by tribes that are already in existence because you choose to associate with scammers. Because you choose to try to tie in or steal some land that don't belong to you. Or because you choose to associate with people that don't want to do the right thing. Or because you choose to try to tie into an organization set up by white supremacist groups to be sovereign citizens. Those are your choices. But the moment that you start attaching Indian, autochthonous, or anything like that, organizations start trying to lump all of us together. So we want to make sure and ensure that everybody knows, from the tribes to the government, that we want no parts of that. And if you have a problem with that, you know where I live. I relinquish the mic.
On the corner, give it to them, but they don't want it.
Exactly, Golden Moon, minding our business. That's all we doing. We minding our business. We are out here in the streets working. We're in the communities working. Our goal is to make sure that everybody that comes to this YouTube platform or that comes to A2 platform can help your community. We're not here for views. We're not here to get our numbers up to over 1,000 so we can monetize our channel. Yeah, I said it. And not everybody that has a monetized channel is looking to dupe the community. That's not what I'm saying. But there are people that are doing that.
Yep.
So don't get it twisted. Am I saying that everybody has a monetized channel is trying to dupe the community? That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there are people in our community that are doing it. And we all know who they are. And yeah, we got receipts. So don't play. Don't play.
Dun, 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 dun.
So at the end of the day, our goal is to help the tribes that are already in existence that want to be self-sufficient. And if we don't show that we're on code with their ways, then we're worse than the colonizers. We're worse than individuals pushing paper genocide. Because like I try to explain to people, you cannot submit a document to a government entity wanting to reclaim land, and you have not reached out to the individuals who already own some land. So you're going to try to reclaim land for tribes that already been here thousands of years before you got here? That's what you're doing? And you didn't talk to any tribe. You didn't talk to any chief. You didn't talk to any council. But you're going to make a decision on their behalf that the United States government, corporation, or whatever you call them, should relinquish all the land to autochthonous and indigenous people. But you didn't consult anybody that already has rights to this land. Okay.
Not a one.
Okay. You don't have any treaties with any government. but you're going to make a claim to have the United States government or corporation, whatever you want to call them, relinquish all the land. That means all the Cherokee land. That means all the Choctaw land. That means all the Navajo land. That means all the Catawba land. That means all the Monacan land. They're going to release all that land to indigenous people because you made a declaration and you didn't talk to none of the tribes, none of the councils, and none of the chiefs. Let me know how that works. Let me know how that works.
I'm going to even add this to it. You're going to come up with all this stuff, and you're going to take it to people. A lot of these political figures are tied in the tribes. So you're going to take this information to them, who they know who they are, who know they tie back into the tribe, got their affairs in order. What do you think going to happen? Somebody going to get removed.
This ain't a game, y'all. This ain't a game. Please do some research. Please do some research.
You might find out Trump got more rights to indigenous land to people because his family members signed to try different places, whether it's by blood, marriage, or adoption. Still family.
Go ahead, James. You about to say something?
No, I was going to say, for those that think that you're going to be able to do all that individually, I like to take a line out of one of my favorite movies, Carrie. They're all going to laugh at you. They're all going to laugh at you. I yield the mic.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Again, my mentality is this. I know who the colonizers are, but I'm not gonna blame somebody for something that my people had part in. And I can't. Here's the thing that the way I look at things. I can only control what I can control. I can't control the colonizers, but I can control helping my tribe. I can control helping to make sure that their documents are straight. So if they want to get federally recognized, that they can. I can help them become self-sufficient and self-sustaining, so that they don't need those periodic grants that come in, so that their kids and their members can sustain and don't need any handouts or any help. Those are things I can do. I'm not gonna be banging my head up against the wall asking somebody to treat me civilized. So, because now I am no longer an Indian if I'm asking to be treated civilized. To be treated civilized is to be treated as a second-class citizen. Those are people that weren't here first. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have civil rights and be an autochthonous.
Don't work that way. Civil means citizen.
So either you want to be a citizen or you want to be autochthonous, or an Indian. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry. How about?
No, go ahead, James.
I was just going to say, and that's what they have confused about Dr. Martin Luther King. They tried to label it under a civil rights movement, and it was not. It was a human rights movement. Because if you recall, in his last days, when he ended up in Tennessee, what were the people holding the signs up for the garbage workers? Right. It was saying, "I am a man. I am a man. I am a man. I am a man."
Yep.
It wasn't about civil, because you can treat a pet civilly. Pets they have civil rights. So, but my dog is not gonna eat it. I don't even have a dog. But if I have one, my dog is not gonna eat at the table. I'm not gonna sit up there and treat my dog better than I treat my children. That's crazy. So, but that's what it comes to when they talk about dealing with civil. You can treat your pet civil. Anybody want to ask Michael Vick what?
James, you breaking up, bro. You breaking up. So Antonio says, I would be interested in current state of affairs of the native tribes as a whole. What are the current issues and objectives overall? What are they all generally working on? Well, that's a great question, Antonio. And that's the reason why we need to talk to those tribes. Because we can sit here and speculate all day long. But until we actually go to them and talk to them, which basically means get off of YouTube and go visit, because you can schedule appointments. Copy
Yep.
Indio has already done it. I got some already scheduled. So in order for those questions to be answered, we need to get off our butts and go talk to them. But I believe most of us are scared because we may find out the truth, and most of us don't want the truth. It's easier to just go claim some land and hope that the colonizer allows us to have the land because we want civil rights, instead of getting off our butt and doing some work. Somebody to give us something. Since they grabbed our land, we're going to grab their land. That's not what happened. We gave them that land. And for those that choose to ignore the facts that by the middle of the 1770s, there were already mulattoes replacing the full-blood chiefs, and that they ushered in all these changes, and you still want to blame the colonizer, to me, you just scared. And like I always say, if you're such a big bad Indian, instead of being on these YouTube channels talking to us, go talk to the colonizers. You keep talking at the colonizers. Sound like you scared to me. Grow some. Go talk to them. Don't talk to me. I'm a leaf on a tree. Go talk to the people that make the decisions. Or are you scared? Because putting up some paper and hoping and wishing something happened, that ain't manning up. I'm sorry, it ain't. If you don't like it, you know where I live.
It's about going home. It's about going home and cleaning up the mess that's there. Our homes are a mess. It's time for us to take responsibility, start whining about it, and just clean it up. Are we going to spend another 20, 30 years trying to come up with an easier way? Change ain't supposed to be easy. Change ain't supposed to be comfortable. And you must be willing to lose comforts and so-called luxuries for change. And I agree with TMH, the biggest problem that we face, we don't want to let go of this European lifestyle. The majority of us love it. We get up in the rising just to, what I'm gonna do to get the bag today, or get this. Think about it. We want to be isolated. We want to get them finances that had a big house, the fancy cars, living on our own land, but isolated. We're still pushing the individualism.
Here's something I find interesting. Again, I'm a preface this because I don't want nobody creating a narrative for A2. These are the thoughts and the views of TMH only. I don't have a problem with people that have jobs, because I used to have a job. Like I said, if it wasn't for the fact that they let me go, I probably still would have one. But I was forced to be an entrepreneur. I'm pretty good with that. But what I'm noticing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the ones that are very boisterous about colonizers have a job. I'm going to say that again. The ones that are mostly boisterous about colonizers and them being responsible have a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Telling you to break away from the system, telling you to go against it, walk away from your ancestors, and walking away from that job or that check every week. Come on, man.
Again, I don't have a problem with somebody having a job, because I had a job. I was let go. I wasn't the one that was brave and walked away from my job. I ain't gonna never tell that lie. They let me go. But I haven't worked for anybody other than my community since 2013. So I find it interesting that the people, some of the people, not all, but some of the people that bang the hardest on these colonizers and want to blame the government for everything actually work a job. So that means, let me put it to you this way. And again, please take it with a grain of salt. And this is only directed at the people that are banging on the colonizers and have a job. Okay? And on social media. So let me get this right. You think that putting some paper together and issuing a decree or whatever, however you want to put it together, is going to allow you to be free? I'm going to tell you what that's equivalent to. That's equivalent to you at your job and you need to take off. So you put in leave and you get granted leave. Same concept. The only difference is you're not going to get granted any land because you put in some paperwork. I've linked with some money.
No, hold on. Not true. You're going to get granted some land, all right. You don't get granted some land. You don't get granted a uniform that looks the same. You don't get granted free utilities for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. The best the federal government can provide. Keep playing, man.
So that that's what's going on. That's where we at.
Yeah, if that's what you want, go ahead. But the reality, if that was that simple to do, why hasn't it ever been done?
And I'm still so no sellout. Has anybody sent you anything, any links, any proof, any video, any audio of organizations creating petitions and getting anything from the government and still have it? I'll wait.
Like we said, we got over hundreds and hundreds of videos of people in the courtroom where it's not working, not one where it worked. And please don't send us the one about the fishing and try to twist it to another narrative. Please don't.
That is not a court of law. That's a municipal court.
So basically, no one has sent any information providing that these things have worked.
Nope, and there's no recorded effort of it ever working in history. And if you do the research behind this is the part that always strikes me. We're indigenous aboriginals, but you're picking up a method that was created by Aryan races. I'm finna say it again. This whole sovereign creating your own thing was created by Aryan races, dude, that was teaching our brothers from prison. Do your research.
Yeah, we dropped a link on that. There's a whole video on it. He got 44 years. Fed
now,
time.
if y'all want to go hang out with him at Club Fed, be my guest. See, I'm the type of person, I ain't finna stop you. I'm just gonna tell you speed up, so when you hit the wall, you know you crashed. You know you wrecked out. There's no mistake about it.
Now, Patrick Gabriel put in Section 8. Patrick, it's interesting that you put Section 8. So I'm gonna ask you this, and I'm gonna preface this. I am not attacking you, but I'm thankful that you put Section 8 in there. So if there's Section 8, and we know that numbers were discovered, not invented, how many other sections are there? And why do we only know about Section 8?
And why, when there's stuff that's public information, we guessing on it?
Again, this is not an attack on you, Patrick. It's just I'm thankful that you brought up Section 8. But why is it that we only know? When I say we, I'm talking about what they call the African American community. Why is it that we only know about Section 8? How many other sections are there? 8 is not the first number. There are what, 7 numbers in front of it? And there's got to be some numbers behind it.
What does Section 8 tie back to? Because Section 8 isn't a government entity, is it? It's a program last I remember.
Yeah.
So what agency does that tie back to, if y'all don't mind me asking?
It would be HUD, right?
And that's a public information site, right?
Yeah.
You don't need no special membership or nothing. You don't got to give no secret hand app or no code or nothing. It's just typing in the browser. You can go there and all this information is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm just checking.
James Gilmore said, I never thought of it. And James, the reason why you never thought of it, for the same reason I never thought of it, was because we've been indoctrinated. We look at things and we don't really think them through.
We look at it through the mind of a colonizer.
Right. So when we hear Section 8, we don't even realize that the 8 is a number, and that there's some numbers that precede it and some numbers that follow it. We just look at it as a formula. Well, that's how I looked at it. I can't tell you how you looked at it. So I didn't think that there was a Section 1 through whatever that number was. So we have been indoctrinated. And I'm going to say something else. Even the conscious community has a form of indoctrination. It's called arrogance. Like, once you reach this level, you can't learn anything else. You're above everything else. That's a form of indoctrination too. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, because this is not a knock on nobody's research or nobody's work. But I can tell you over the last couple of months, there's a lot of basic information that was missed. A whole lot that was missed. That a lot of the answers that we're looking for, we don't have to go back to 1100 and 1200, 13, 14, 1500. You don't have to go that far back for these answers. A lot of these answers you can find in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Because a lot of these major changes to this life, how you see it now, didn't take full effect until 1920, 1930, 1940. Let's don't forget they were still fighting Indians at the top of the 1900s.
Mm-hmm. Made a major complaint in 1906? There was too many of us because we had majority vote.
Yep, they took it on Congress floor. This is public knowledge. All congressional hearings are public knowledge. You can look it up and you can see the transcripts. They didn't block anything out. They let it be known. It was too many of us, and in a vote, they can never keep power, so they had to remove us. This is their words. 1906 Congress.
You can go to congress.gov to get that information, just so you know. And the reason why we talked about that section 8 is because at the end of the day, there's a lot of information in Section 8, but there are some people in our community telling us we need to stay away from 501c when our tribes are 501c. Our tribes were the original 501c. So how you gonna tell me to stay away from something that's part of who I am, and you're claiming the same thing that you're telling me to stay away from? If that ain't an oxymoron, I don't know what is.
First of all, if you watching football, basketball, or sport on TV and telling some walk away from a 501c, jump off a building, please. I said it. What do you think you watching and supporting? Like, wow.
Some of the companies these people work for are 501cs. You do not have to state that your company is a 501c because all it is a tax exempt status. There's nothing that legally makes a corporation have to say that they are 501c. A lot of your insurance companies are 501cs. I bet you didn't know that.
Yeah, 501c does not mean the government controls you and they in there telling you do this and do that. Come on, we got to stop letting people misinform us. We got to be willing to do some research for ourselves. And this research right here, I won't even say research. This is just a basic inquiry. You know what I'm saying? It's just right there. You ain't gonna have to pay no money to find this information. It's right there. A lot of times the things that you really need to be finding is closest to you as your nose. But we so far trying to find a romance story to it that we keep missing it.
Again, because if I blame somebody for my downfall, then they're responsible for fixing it. If I take responsibility for it, now I'm responsible for fixing it. Which one, idealistically, which one is the easiest one to deal with? Me blaming you so you can fix it, or me accepting my part in it so I can fix it? Because if I fix it, I got to get up and do something. But if you're at fault, now you have to fix it, and I can sit back and wait for you to fix it.
And keep complaining and be like, well, yo, I should get this, and I should have this, and I should have that. And you should have it, then tie back into your rightful family and get it. But then there go that colonized mind again. Wasn't we told, give us something, and then have us eating out of their hands for 200 years? Mm-hmm. Now, how can we as a people say we so prideful? And we can hear this man, watch the video of this man saying this, and we still doing the same foolishness in 2019.
Give me back my land. Give me back my land. Give me back my land. When you have family, hold on, let's look at this. Give me back my land. Give me back my land. When you have family that already have land. Give me back my land. But you have family that already have land. All you gotta do is go to roll call and get your land. But you're gonna ask the government to give you land that belongs to somebody else. So what is easier? To go to your family and get your land, or go to the colonizer and get your land? Who's really colonized? If you are going straight to the colonizer, that ain't the source. The colonizer is a third party, because basically what you're asking for, let's be real, If you're asking the colonizer to give you the land, where's the colonizer gonna get the land from? The colonizer has to take the land from somebody. So you asking the colonizer to broker a deal to take land because you too damn scared to go talk to the person that has that land.
You don't want to go talk to grandma. You don't want to go talk to granddad.
So you asking the colonizer, please, Mr. Colonizer, can you go get some land for me? Because I really don't want to go talk to my grandparents. I don't really want to go talk to my great-grandparents. I really don't want to go talk to my great-great-grandparents. So can you just give me some land so I can do my own thing? You asking for somebody to broker a deal with y'all. You gotta do is go straight to the source. You're scared to go to the source.
They free though. They free though. Let them tell it. That's freedom. Let them tell it. Asking somebody for something that's already rightfully yours, and all you got to do is go home. Yeah, y'all free to be dumb if you're gonna keep doing that foolishness.
Because that land that's in a trust is held in a trust because it belongs to somebody. So if that land belongs to somebody, you're actually asking the colonizer to forget who it belongs to and give it to you. That's what you're doing.
Please, 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 please. Ain't that a handout?
But you're banging on a colonizer, but the person that you banging on, you asking for them to give you something. How much sense does that make? Instead of going to the people who have the land. Your family. They're already on that land. They've been on that land. All you got to do is go help them get more of it.
You too busy partying with the Europeans. So talking about colonizers, but living like a colonizer.
So the question is who's colonized? If you're going to the colonizer to try to get your land back, when you already have family that has their land, and you can get more land by uniting with your family who already has land, then who's colonized? Oh, wait.
Come on now. Let's think about it. Like I said, we are not here to tell you the romance stories. We're going to deal with the truth, get to the bottom of it so we can fix it. So we got to be careful.
Go ahead, James.
Oh, go ahead, James.
No, I was gonna say here's the kicker. For those that think you're gonna do this individually, and if you're crying out, give me back my land, and if you find out where your people land actually is, but you're trying to do it individually, I'm gonna tell you how they do it in law, because it is what it is. There is a law, and it's different, it varies from state to state, that is called the right of redemption. If your ancestors own that land, you have the right to get it back. Here's the kicker, and they don't come out and say what I'm gonna say later on. They will tell you this way: you need to contact all of your relatives and their relatives' relatives and their relatives' relatives and their relatives' relatives. And once you have all those contacts, and on those contacts, if they give you permission to be the authority, then we will sign the land over to you after a series of going to courts. What I just said in a nutshell is, and this is what you can check with any court, you can check with any appraisal district. What it boils down to is they're telling you tie back to your tribe, because you still got to connect with your relatives, your relatives' relatives, your relatives' relatives. Because I'm dealing with a situation like that here in Texas, and people they're trying to sell the land and they can't sell it. They're trying to sell it for pennies on the dollar, but it's tied up until we make sure that we've contacted all of my folk, all of them. We have to either prove that they want no part of it by signing something, getting notarized, or we have to prove that they have transitioned, which requires a death certificate. And this has been tied up for over 10 years now. They can't sell it, but they know that it's ours, but it's still saying, tie back to your tribe, tie back to your people. So if you think somebody's just going to give you some land under the right of redemption, like I say, every state, it varies, but they will tell you that. You cannot go in as an individual and say, I'm a sovereign citizen and this is the land that my people will own and I'm going to be able to get it. It's not going to work. And it's going to be more than those that are in your household. It's going to take everyone that you are related to, by blood and by marriage. I yield the mic.
And if you're even, I'm going to add this on, and this is my personal view on how I see this. If that's what you're trying to do, you're a colonizer. Because you're trying to take away from tribal tradition and do your own thing. Isn't that what the colonized chiefs did? Didn't we just read that?
Sounds like some people want to be colonizers. They don't want to be Indians.
That's what it look like and sound like a hill.
Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear words you're saying. You're going to the colonizers to give you land. Isn't that what the immigrants did? They petitioned to come over here so they can get land. So who was the land? So if you're getting land from the colonizer, who are they taking the land from? You're doing the same thing the immigrants did when they came over here. So how are you any different? And who gives you the authority to call somebody a colonizer when you're doing the exact same thing the colonizer did? Because in order for the government to give that land to you, they have to take it from somebody. Because every square inch of America was occupied. So if every square inch of America was occupied, who are they taking the land from to give it to you? Your immigrant? I'll relinquish the mic.
Yep, because that petition, the root word of that petition is you're petty. Or in the French, you're petite. Meaning that you are a minor, you are a dependent, and you know that you have no rights. You're admitting that you are a minor, and you need a higher authority to speak on your behalf. So when you're trying to do it as a sovereign citizen, talk about petitioning for the land, that you have to make a request, which means that you are being petty. I yield the mic.
So it sounds like to me.
Basic info.
So it sounds like to me, ladies and gentlemen, that in our own communities we have some colonizers because they want to get the colonizers or the government to take land from Indians and give it to them. Because in order for them to get the land, the government got to take it from somebody, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Sounds like a colonizer to me.
Yes, sir.
Sounds like encroachment to me.
Yes, sir. And then I'm not supposed to feel no type of way because it's being said that people don't want to do the work. They just want to come and take the land that my ancestors already got and living on. Like we just supposed to pack up and leave now because you put out a petition. I mean, let's really think about what it says. That's why we got to be cautious on what we do, especially when we're doing it on these forums, because 100 years from now, people can look back and see what side we stood on in these fights.
Every video that you've ever created, every video that I've ever created, every back chat that you've ever typed in, every back chat that I've ever typed in is recorded and archived. Can't we pull up archive information now from the incidents that happened over 200 years ago?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
And aren't we looking back at a couple of ancestors with some raised eyebrows right now?
Mm-hmm.
In real time, we're looking back through archives at a lot of our ancestors like, what was you thinking? Why would you do that? We will be judged the same when our time comes.
Now, here's a funny part. We'll be judged a little bit differently because there's audio with ours.
Yeah, audio and video.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
Because some of us type daily. Some of us record daily. So your ancestors will be, your descendants will be able to look at everything you said and everything that you typed and see exactly what you were thinking. Now remember, they're going to have a perspective from revisionist history, meaning they already know the outcome. Unlike us, right?
Facts.
And they're going to be like, why didn't they see this coming? What were they thinking? Why would they do or say something so stupid when they're supposed to know the law? Didn't they know that they was going to get put on the BIE list for saying that? Didn't they know that the FBI and the CIA was investigating them?
All digital platforms since 2008.
Didn't they know that? They had to have known it because they did
Public
a show.
knowledge.
They did a show on it. So if they do a show on it and still do these things, why would they do something so stupid?
We got to be cautious.
So,
Say it all the time. We have a choice. What are you going to do with your choice?
so the more important question is, forget how you feel about me. You know, because I'm one person. I ain't nobody important. What legacy are you leaving for your descendants to look at you? How do you want to be viewed by your descendants?
But and we ask this because how can you stand up and say that you care? How can you stand up and say that you have love if that's not the first thing on your mind? That every step, every sound you make is being recorded and will be looked on in history a particular way. Especially if you're on these platforms trying to take a leadership role. We have to be cautious on the images that we paint, the things that we manifest. Because if you haven't caught on to now, you really got some shaking to do when we drop this other information on this, the light stuff.
Exactly.
If you haven't seen it by now, that we've been financing our own demise from the beginning.
Oh my gosh, yes.
If this light work is shaking you, whew, pretty soon we're gonna have full bodysuits on. We gotta make sure what we do represents us in the proper way. We gotta make sure when we make a move, before we make that move, we sit down and realize the ripples that it will send forward in time, and even unilateral in time. We gotta be aware of the positions that we take can move the whole community forward or keep the whole community stagnant. And I'm one who wants to believe that the majority of us who come and do this, we do it for the love. We do it because we want 7 generations to be better. So let's make sure moving forward, our actions can be judged righteously in history. That yes, we don't know the future, but all we can is be the best that we can be. No more. And it doesn't start until we make it start. We don't need nobody's permission, nobody's authority. We just have to choose. This is a time that we talk to the individual, because the individuals must want to change first so us to change as a collective. As individuals, we must start holding the things around us accountable. Because if I can't do it as an individual, how would I ever be able to do it as a community? If I'm not at peace with myself as an individual on who I am, how can I ever be at peace with a community? So let's start cleaning up ourselves as individuals. Let's start showing our children a better way. Let's start making sure on these social platforms, let's stop supporting the things that show the worst of us. We give too much time to the things that are breaking us down. We do. Our brother James talked about ethics. Just because you can do something in law, I can go to a Facebook page and watch Aboriginal children fight each other while grown-ups sit around and laugh. It's not morally right. My homeboy, oh, we went to school, but he hurt somebody in the community. And because of our relationship, he need to be free, or I'm gonna let him hide out. That's not morally right. We can't sit here and say that we want to honor our ancestors, but only when it benefits us. We got to be willing to show honor, even if it means we had to lose everything and start back over. To let go of the things that hold us in place. To realize we are all suffering from colonized minds. No matter how wise of a scholar you think you are. It's embedded in us. It's in our blood. It's a part of us now. So at the end of today's Rising Show, let's all take it upon ourselves as individuals today to improve on ourselves. Let's don't point the finger at no one. Let's point that thumb at ourselves today and see where we fell short, what we can fix for tomorrow in our own personal lives. Let's start showing the world that we don't need nobody's support to do this. We have all the support we have in each other. Let's stop saying we tired. Let's stand up because we're tired of not doing. That's what we should be tired of, not doing. Because how dare we sit here and say we sick and tired like we've been doing something. So again, I'm speaking to the individual, including myself. Let's see what we can improve in ourselves so we can leave a better legacy for tomorrow. And on that note, any closing remarks?
I'll start. Stop being scared to hold people accountable. Stop being scared to go to the tribes and talk to them. And stop asking the colonizer to take land from your people so you can have the land because you're too scared to go talk to your tribe. Again, our goal is to help those who want to find out if they have Indian in their family. And if you do find out you have Indian in your family and want to connect to your tribe so you can help your tribe and allow us to help your tribe if that's what you want to do. That's what our goal is, to help you and your community do your genealogy, get tied into your tribe, and then help your tribe. That's it. I relinquish the mic.
Anything from Brother James or no sellout?
You all summed it up better than I could. I yield the mic.
Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And it's always fun when we get to spend the Rising with the relatives. No place I'd rather be, and we appreciate y'all spending this time with us. And until tomorrow's Rising Show, peace.